If you clicked on this video to give me a death threat in the comments, just hear me out. Nintendo fans know that Wario's feelings towards Mario go a little something like this.
There you go.
Oh, she is beautiful.
Shut up, Mom! Let me get eyes on this. Everybody else already had. Stephanie. People always underbid on her showcases.
Mario's like that one cousin in the family who had a 4.0, never missed class, went to med school and cured cancer, and Wario's like that cousin's 30-year-old brother who was selling weed to high school kids in the back gate. But before we get to all that, we first have to understand how and why Wario was even created. By peeking into the very creation of Wario, you see the roots of the personality that the devs intended. The reality is that the essence of his character traits are deeply rooted in the attitude of the team that formed him. Let's rewind to November 1991, about 2 years after the launch of the original Game Boy and its flagship title, Super Mario Land. Nidendo's R&D1 team began to sit down and brainstorm ideas for its sequel. Now, the team I just named is crucial to this story and Wario's beginnings, simply because, not as you would expect, Shigeru Miyamoto had nothing to do with these guys. They were led by some dude named Gunpei Yokoi. It's kind of irrelevant in the gaming world though, so whatever. When you look at R&D1's first Mario game, Super Mario Land, and compare it to the other mainline Mario titles that were built for the NES and SNES, you can feel that this wasn't made by the same brains behind the usual games. While the formula remained mostly the same, it made several creative shifts in the world that feel so strange now in the context of Mario's world. Easter Island heads and Egyptian hieroglyphs line the backdrop. You get dropped into levels by way of UFO. You battle spiders and pilot submarines and planes. It feels very much like a Joe Rogan fever dream rather than the normal Mushroom Kingdom that we're used to. And this is all a result of this different development team. But what inspired them to go this far off the normal course? Well, to put it simply, frustration brewed during the team's first foray into a Mario game. At the end of the day, they had a bad taste in their mouth from the business's pressure on them to pump out a title that required Mario, a character that none of them really had any personal connection to as it was Miyamoto's creation. We don't really think of it this way, but Nintendo's as much of a business as JP Morgan Chase or Disney. What the suits at the top want, they need to get. And as fun as working at Nintendo seems to the player, these developers were boxed into creating a game that they didn't necessarily care for, to profit on the company's exciting, newly found cash cow. Nobody's safe from workplace angst, even the guys pumping out the cutesy, fun little games that we play. But the bizarre defiance of Super Mario Land is how they're kind of able to put their own unique twist on the series while also meeting that business requirement. And with the autonomy they were given in their creative process, they began to give birth to their new, heinous creation. When it came time to make the sequel, R&D1 took their not-so-subtle acts of creative protest to the next level, and they concocted what would become the very antithesis of Mario. In a hilarious result of frustration and pettiness, they gave Mario the Wumbo treatment for their new villain. But it didn't stop there. This new character would become the ultimate exaggerated caricature of Nintendo's Golden Boy. The meatball body? Make it bigger. The iconic mustache? Make it pointier. An Italian American? Make him smellier. The result was this monstrosity of a human being. In Super Mario Land 2's final showdown between Mario and Wario, the latter uses the same exact moveset, but flees from room to room, showing his cowardice to contrast Mario's bravery. So beneath the surface, Super Mario Land 2 is a more assertive call-out from the employees in R&D1. If you're gonna make us throw this Mario schmuck in our creative process, we're gonna do it our way. People loved the game, and it earned R&D1 more creative freedom. They were able to take the Wario idea and run with it, creating a third game in the Mario Land line, but this time completely centering the gameplay around Wario. And the Wario spin-off line that followed continued this trend and attitude that these initial developers started. Going forward, when Wario was the center of a game, you knew it was going to be completely different than normal Mario games. And this is most obvious when comparing Nintendo's two flagship minigame franchises, Mario Party and WarioWare. The very essence of contrasting gameplay is really hard to miss. Mario Party is slower, methodical, more luck-based, like a quaint game of Monopoly with your family. It plays out very orderly in its pacing and gameplay, despite the fact that sometimes you want to RKO your Aunt Linda for stealing your second star of the game, you fuck. Now, WarioWare, on the other hand, is pretty much the opposite. Microgames blow past you, requiring you to smash buttons, think on your toes, and be prepared for any slew of reflexive, sometimes random mechanics that may come your way in the next few seconds. It's bizarre, hilarious, and sometimes downright disgusting. In the span of 20 seconds, you can go from furiously spamming A to launch a rocket, to petting a dog, to cutting the snot off an anime girl's nose. I don't know what's... Does anyone know what's good with this nose stuff? It's like everywhere in these games. While Mario games typically stick to their same formats, simple mechanics, and traditional rules of gameplay, with Wario games you're often using every single aspect of the console to the fullest extent. Sometimes you could be blowing into a DS mic or using a gyroscope to make turns. Even the DSi camera was used in one of the spin-off games. The point is, you never know what to expect and they never hold back. And this all stems back from what makes Wario so great in the first place. Defiance and creativity is in his DNA. If you trace back Wario's parents, R&D1, to their beginnings, these were literally the same people who were revolutionizing gaming with the Game & Watch in prehistoric times. This DNA, by the way, is definitely visible in WarioWare minigames, with some of them being very reminiscent of the simplistic, addicting Game & Watch format. Does this mean that... No way. Although they were absorbed into Nintendo's software planning and development division in 2004, they had already made their mark and set the tone for Wario and his future games for years to come. Outside-the-box thinking and full utilization of hardware, however weird it may be, is where Wario games shine. These games are a necessity as a complementary franchise to Nintendo's tried-and-true Mario line of games. Speaking of necessity, in building out Wario's personality, accentuating his greed with his need for coins, and defining his rudeness with his non-stop ripping ass, what ended up happening was a sort of trickle-down effect on the Mario franchise's world building. Mario as a character is so vanilla that the introduction of Wario definitely opened the door for the rest of the characters to develop the defining personalities that we know and love today. Yes, Mario is the staple, he's the icon, but he's kind of fucking boring. Developing actual personalities builds rapport between fans and the brand, allowing them to resonate more with their favorite characters, whether it be Luigi's fearfulness or Yoshi being that cool, chill guy who enjoys Kush and chills by himself. The list goes on. I'd argue that it was Wario's introduction that allowed for this evolution of the franchise. And it's for all these reasons that I may argue that Wario is the greatest Nintendo character. But the most important trait of all is that he hits fucking nokes. If you actually watched this entire video, I really appreciate it. Feel free to drop me a death threat if you disagreed, or a death threat if you agreed. Anyways, thanks for watching.